but you're never too deep in the sin. But you're never too deep, start speaking to him. He's the healer, the giver, the taker. Allah is your maker.
الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق الخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي لصراط المستقيم صلى الله وسلم عليه وعلى آله حق قدر المقدار العظيم سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. So Jazakumullah khair everyone for coming out tonight. Just very briefly, as Brother Zaid said, that we talked about, we defined Ihsan and the idea of excelling, the idea of perfecting, the idea of trying to make things beautiful, and that doesn't just apply. Islam is complete. It doesn't just apply to our salah or to our what we see as acts of worship. It applies to everything, and that's what we're trying to emphasize in these sessions. It's real life. We don't compartmentalize that. We're excellent in this. Our religion is excellent in this box, but when we're in this box, it's complete. We're completely different, and that's really what I wanted to touch on today. And last week we talked about how that applies to family and how it applies to the self and parents and spouse and neighbors and things like that. But I was reminded of two things. One of the brothers who attended, he reminded me that it's not all plain sailing. It's easy in theory. Show excellence to your parents, but in reality things are not always that straightforward. There's often complexities. There's often difficulties between for example, between wife and mother-in-law. There's often this tension, and it's a really difficult one as a husband to balance that, and it takes a lot of wisdom. Another thing I was reminded of today, a brother who deals with a lot of Islamophobic kind of stuff. He said that he told a woman called him crying on the phone that her neighbor is constantly shouting abuse at her, spitting at her children, and it's all very well talking about let's show ihsan to our neighbors, but if you are facing abuse and you're facing hostility, and it's very, very, very challenging. And the theory may sound nice, but the reality may be very different. And when you're in Islam doesn't expect us to just take harm, especially if it's women and children. That we're not supposed to. We have a level of tolerance. We're not supposed to just put up with being harmed and being assaulted and being. So we take the means and we take assistance in those situations. So the theory is brilliant, it's beautiful, our deen is beautiful. The real life is different. So hopefully what we'll come to today is that when we talk about the working life and we've got amazing theory, we have amazing concepts we're going to talk about. You guys tell me, am I talking up here, and you guys in reality something completely different. So I want everyone to, if you're working, please, bring your own experience. This is a work in progress. I put what I think is important. I may be missing things. I may be missing the mark completely. I don't work a 9-to-5 job. So I'm the first to admit, imams can speak on their minbar and they're just not in the real world. They'll be telling you about, you must do this, and they're not living the same life as everyone else. So respect to people that are working hard and still holding on to their deen and still excelling. So please, bring your own experience, bring your own issues, tell me if I'm completely off the mark, tell me. But I'm going to just focus on three things today, inshallah. First of all, our intentions, what we intend in our work and entering the workplace, some core principles that we have, and then some etiquette, some more the ihsan side of the excellence. But ihsan comes through in all these things, but towards the end there'll be more, perhaps some areas that we can focus on. So we begin with intentions, and this applies to someone who is, perhaps you just graduated, you're going to enter into the world of work, for example, or you're thinking about what course to do at university and what career path I'm thinking. That your intention comes in here, but also it comes in every single day of our lives, that you're going to work. Why am I doing this? What am I aiming to get from this? So if we were to ask someone, what should our intentions be? What could some of our intentions be in the work that we do? What even just on a very basic level? What are the fundamental things that we intend or should intend? And we all know the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, the actions are by intentions. We're as Muslims, we're different. We may be doing exactly the same deeds, actions as someone else, but we have a different perspective. So what are some of the intentions that we could intend from going to work, even just on a very basic level. Anyone? Providing, yeah, that's the obvious one, is to provide, seeking your provision. We're told to go out and seek our rizq. That's an act of, in and of itself is an act of worship, and it's a transaction with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What else? What else from that? From that, what comes from that as well is the obvious going on from that is providing for others. If you have a responsibility to provide for others, if you have a wife, or you have children, you have elderly parents, you're actually obeying the command of Allah to provide for them, and it's a neglect of a responsibility or an obligation to not do that. Say Umar came across a man, worshipping in the mosque and doing itikaf 24/7, and he said, "Who's you're not obviously making a living. Who's supporting you?" He said, "My brother's funding." He said, "Your brother's better than you, because he wouldn't be here if it hadn't been for your brother." So you can be, as what you can do is you can do loads of worship, but if you're neglecting an obligation, you can do lots of, again, this is the idea of priorities. We have obligations and we have extras. If you're not fulfilling the obligations, then don't run about doing the extras. Someone that works hard does the absolute minimum in terms of their prayers, but they're fulfilling obligations to their family, is better than someone who's doing loads of nawafil and neglecting the obligations. So Islam gives us this system, this list of priorities, and this system of priorities. And the amazing thing is that the kind of movement that takes place, you seeking provision provides provision for someone else. So you go out, you earn, you spend. You're providing for someone else's provision. If everyone just sat and did nothing, the economy wouldn't work. But there's a system that this is the sunnah of Allah, that you go out and that employs someone else, and that brings that kind of brings about a whole nother trade or another system. That's also part of it. And then earning enough money to be independent of others. You're not in need. You're not putting your hands out. Please help me out. You're independent, and that gives you izzah. That gives you honor. And then also to give back, to give charity, give zakah, contribute to the community, contribute to society. Those are like the foundational things, the kind of first things. But there's a lot more that we can talk about. And this comes back to, and this might be a bit small for people to read. Sorry, but there's huge rewards just in the act of work, the act of going out and earning living. So the Prophet ﷺ and many hadith talk about that the money that you spend on your family is the best type of charity. Your reward is sadaqah. When a man spends money to support his wife and children, seeking Allah's reward, it is considered charity. It's considered like sadaqah. Even though in reality it's an obligation, but you're rewarded like that. Whoever finds himself tired in the evening from his work will be forgiven. You haven't done any, seemingly you haven't done any worship. You've just been busy in the office, driving, whatever it is. You come back tired. Allah will forgive that person because they've done it because of their intention. You see, the non-Muslim who does exactly the same job will not be forgiven at the end of the day because their intention is different. You see, and more deeper and greater is that you attain the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That by excelling in your action, Allah loves the believer who has a profession. You've actually learned a skill, learned an art, learned something, and you've exercised that. Allah loves that from someone. And you have a high station. This is one of the most amazing hadith, that the tajir, the trader, the businessman, the who's honest and trustworthy, will be resurrected with the prophets, the siddiqeen, and the shuhada. The high ranks. What are the highest ranks that we can reach? That any human can be is the Nabi, and then we have Siddiq, and then we have Shaheed. The ordinary trader, he's just buying and selling, and in whatever context that is. But if they're honest and trustworthy, and they're truthful, and they're sincere, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raises their rank. Okay. Which is what doesn't seem to make any sense. How can this person be like the rank of the Shaheed? Yeah. But because everyone is in a transaction with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And things aren't always as they seem. Most of the shuhada of this ummah are the people that die on their beds, as the Prophet said. They're not the ones that die in battle. People are just doing ordinary stuff, but doing it with excellence. And this is what we're talking about. So that's something to think about. And it could be trader, it could be, could be a office worker, it could be anyone. It's not specific. It's just someone excels and is trustworthy and honest and sincere in their work, they'll be resurrected. And then there's another example. So a man passed by the Prophet ﷺ and the companions are impressed by his strength and his energy. MashaAllah, he's doing this and doing that and carrying this. And they said, Ya Rasulullah, this is brilliant. If only this person was doing this fi sabilillah. If only he had all that strength and he was doing it in jihad. That's what they're saying. If only he was like a warrior and the Prophet said ﷺ, he wanted to correct their understanding. This person, if he's doing all this business and if he's doing it to provide for his children, or he's doing it to provide for his aged parents, or if he's striving to provide for himself to avoid being dependent on other people, then this is fi sabilillah. So we need to widen our understanding. Every morning you go out, you're fi sabilillah if your intention is that. The taxi driver gets up and he's mujahid fi sabilillah if their intention is there, because he's striving to provide, he's striving to. However, if he's making these efforts to show off and boast and show others, or for other than Allah, then it's fi sabilillah shaitan. We can't tell just by looking, because it's an internal thing. And then there's bigger intentions, like you guys, young guys. What do you actually want to do in life? What do you really aim? What do you actually want to get from this incredible opportunities that you have with your education? And people in other countries would kill just to have the opportunities we have, educational opportunities. But what you're going to do with all that at the end of the day? You're just going to go through the motions and be like everyone else. Is there any difference between what you want and what the average non-Muslim wants? Or do you actually want to change? Or do you want to make the world a better place? There's the idea of what's called a fard kifaya. We have fard ayn and fard kifaya. Fard ayn is my individual responsibility. I have my own responsibilities. And there's the idea of fard kifaya, which is a communal obligation. We have, as a community, we have to fulfill certain actions, certain things. We need doctors. We need. And it's a bit different in a non-Muslim situation. In a Muslim community or Muslim society, everyone should be fulfilling something, so that there's completion. If we have too many doctors and not enough nurses, then we're negligent, you see. Or if we have too many this or not enough of that, you see. And the best example of that is the janazah. When someone dies, it's a fard kifaya on the community to take care of that person, to wash, to shroud, to bury, to pray the janazah. That's a fard kifaya. If no one does it, the whole community is held responsible. But also in a wider sense, if there's no one there's no doctors, or if we have lots of male doctors and not enough female doctors, for example, Islamically, we're deficient in that. Or if we have, go on and on, we don't have enough people that, the people that are repairing the roads, are working at night on the M8 to make sure that you can drive on it tomorrow. Those people are fulfilling a fard kifaya in an Islamic sense. They're fulfilling a fard kifaya, because if they didn't do that, no one would be safe. They're working on the fourth bridge or whatever. These people, from an Islamic perspective, that's a fard kifaya. Okay. So if your intention is that, even the mundane, boring job that you're doing, you're actually fulfilling something which is part of the. But beyond that, like I said, it's like, do you not want to make the world a better place? In your small impact that you have on the world, do you not want to just change something or make something better or do something, build something? And it doesn't have to necessarily be in your work, but if you're going to spend that amount of time, how many years and hours of your week and years of your life you're going to spend in that career or whatever it is, surely you want to be doing something that's beneficial, at least not harmful. At least it's beneficial. Imagine working, selling arms, in the arms trade or something. That's, you're doing something which is, you can no doubt that it's harming people. Okay, but you could be just in the middle, no harm, no benefit, or you could be generally helping and benefiting people to some level, or you could think bigger that I'm actually making the world a better place. I'm contributing in some small way to making this life better for people, and Muslims play a big part in that. And it doesn't necessarily have to be spectacularly amazing. The Nobel Peace Prize winner for. It's just you're just doing good in society, taking care of people. There's like 13% of the NHS workers are Muslim, out of 6% in the UK. So a bigger proportion of the population work in the NHS, helping people. And that in itself is da'wah. Is people are seeing Muslims in that situation. The doctors and If you took all the doctors and nurses, Muslim doctors and nurses out of the NHS, it would struggle. You see the effect. And also the duty of da'wah. We have a duty to call people to Allah. We have the duty to represent Islam at some level in the work that we do. Think about that again. It's another intention we can intend. I'm going to work today. I'm not going to preach. I'm not going to tell people how wonderful Islam is. I'm just going to be a Muslim, a visible Muslim who has principles, and people will see that. We'll talk more about that. But we should think: I guess for the guys who are going in later, who are thinking about their choices of career and subjects, and what can I do? What if the choice that I'm making, will it really be? Will I be able to serve Islam in that position? Sheikh Muhammad, one of our teachers, said that a human rights lawyer in this day and age, a human rights lawyer is a mujahid fi sabilillah. If you're someone that can stand up for whatever it may be, situations where Muslim rights or human rights are being are under threat, or whatever, that's the kind of jihad. So you've gone through a law school and you've done all that, and you're now using it in a way or you could just be a commercial lawyer and help companies get rich. It's up to you. Or you could be someone that really is doing something for you. You could be on the International Court of Justice. You could be preparing that case against Israel or something. For whatever we know how limited it is, but at least you're doing something. You see, that's the kind of jihad. But we have this kind of message from people like Andrew Tate that says you can just get rich and live this great lifestyle. You don't really have to do much. You just have to kind of sell someone some kind of concept, and and then you have it's just not real life. It's not like, and even if you can make money in the way that they have these guys these influencers telling you can make money in this way. Even if that's true, like what has he done to help humanity? Is that really, is that all? It's just ego. It's just ego. Like how, look at me, look at the lifestyle I'm living. Look how it's telling this false message that we can just make money out of nothing. And even if it's true, what have you done? What's your intention for doing that anyway? Is that what life is for? Just to have a great, comfortable life? And we can have that, and Islam allows that. But is that what we're here on this short life and this dunya to have? Surely there's more to that than that's kind of promise. And every time you open YouTube, there's some guy saying, "Have you not heard the latest thing about how to get rich quick? And if you just buy this," and it's just, it's like, yeah, okay, maybe it's true, maybe, but even then, have we not surely got more to offer than that? So that's just intentions. This is how we just starting with intentions. Then core principles. As Muslims, what should the core principles be? What should be the founding things that we don't compromise on? What things should we be thinking about? Anyone? First one, I'm just like being obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In our work that we're not in an act of disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We'll come back to them one by one, inshallah. Having taqwa, and the higher level is having taqwa and scrupulousness, being vigilant about what we're doing. Having knowledge, that we know what we're going in. We shouldn't enter something in the Deen without knowing the ruling and the implications of what we're doing. And we'll talk more about that. And in the midst of that, having reliance on Allah. Yes, we take the means, but Allah is the one that decides. Having honesty and integrity. So we'll talk through these, inshallah. So the first one, obedience to Allah. These are just points that you can just you can take them or leave them. But is the area of work itself that you're going into, is that in and of itself halal? Okay, is it halal? And then more specifically, if you go into a certain area, are your dealings in that area permissible? Okay, are the contracts or transaction valid? Is riba involved? These kind of things. Is it harmful, the thing that the area you're involved in? And there's ones which are obvious: selling alcohol, selling drugs, gambling. And then there's ones which are more nuanced and complex. You may be banks is one that is more complex. And that's where we'll come to knowledge is actually asking experts and looking at that in more depth. And another is how is that affecting our other obligations, basic things, salah, Jummah as men, paying our zakah, our fasting, obligations to others. Are we so set on our careers that it's not that it's actually stopping us from fulfilling our obligations? Then there's something wrong here. We can't pray our salah, we can't pray our Jummah, we can't fast in Ramadan. There's a mix of priorities here. And there's a brother here who I love and respect, who's had no compromise on his Jummah. He came to Edinburgh, I've known him from that time, and he always refused to work on and always made Jummah a priority. And you see the barakah and the blessings that come from that. Other people might have said, I need to get work, and and the company I'm working for isn't giving me that time off. And generally, alhamdulillah, companies are more, people are more, there's more understanding now, there's more flexibility, there's more working from home, but still, when push comes to shove, are you going to be someone that says, no, I will not, if it's make or break, I'm not going to sacrifice my Jummah for the sake of this job, even if it means having to leave it. Usually there's ways of finding, you find a way of compromise, but still, we have principles. Praying our salah on time, and again, there may be compromises and things like that, but still. And Allah praises these people. رِجَالٌ لَا تُلْهِيهِمْ تِجَارَةٌ وَلَا بَيْعٌ عَنْ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. That neither trade nor buying or selling, commerce or profit distracts them from the remembrance of Allah. Okay? وَإِقَامُ الصَّلَاةِ وَإِيتَاءِ الزَّكَاةِ. In other words, Allah doesn't need us to just be in a monastery somewhere worshipping Him, not having any worldly connections. He wants us to live in this world, but not be so bogged down in it that it causes us to leave the basic obligations. لا تلهيهم عن ذكر الله. It doesn't that yes, they buy and sell, and this is how if you went to the souk in the old days in Cairo or Morocco or Lahore, whatever it is, there'd be people, there's buying, there's bustle, there's hustle and bustle, but when the time of salah comes, people do their salah. And when there's no customers, they're doing dhikr. They're thinking, they reflect, obviously not everyone, but this is the Quranic archetype. They're not distracted by commerce or profit, because and the marketplace is one of the hated. The hadith tells us the souk is the most hated place to Allah, because that's where people are heedless of Allah. That's where people cheat and people do all these kind of stuff to make money. But in the traditional Muslim cities, there were places of dhikr. There'd be places of prayer right. If you go to fairs, so you go to, and every corner there's a little musalla to pray. Very easy to pray. The salah, you hear the call, people close it. People don't even they didn't even lock their shops. They just put like a curtain over the shop and go and pray, because it's that trust, and that in Sudan, I'm sure it's the same. There's aman, there's safety, and then you come back. You're not worried about missing out on. Allah tells us that when this time for Jummah comes, you have to leave the bay'. Okay, when the call for the Jummah comes, it's a haram to buy and sell. Okay? Just for those few minutes, it's only half an hour or something in a week. You have every other minute of the day you can sell. So and then there's a higher level which is taqwa and scrupulousness. Is being conscious of the grey areas. The halal is clear and the haram is clear. Between that, between the two are doubtful matters that are unknown to most people. The grey areas. Okay, is this valid or not valid? And the safest thing is to avoid them. The one who avoids these doubtful matters will save his religion and honor. This is the idea of taqwa, of what's called wara, of scrupulousness. But if you don't have this in you, then it's a slippery slope. It will lead you to the haram. And then he makes this, the Prophet ﷺ gives a metaphor of the shepherd who has an area of pasture, okay, one valley, but there's not like fences. It's just he goes very close to he knows on the other side of the valley there's another land, and they're not there's no fence, there's no electric fence. He goes very close to the edge, and one or two sheep go on into that other land, someone else's land. That's what Allah is saying, that if you sail close to the wind, or if you go close to the boundaries, you're in danger of transgressing. Okay. So the safety is to stay within the boundaries, stay safely within the boundaries. And many hadith about that. Leave what makes you doubtful for what doesn't. Wrongdoing is that which causes inward suspicion and hesitation, even should you be given a legal opinion by those entitled to give it. Okay. So someone says, And the Sharia is wide. There's lots of width in the Sharia. There's lots of different opinions. You can find someone that will give you, say it's valid to do this, but you know in your heart of hearts this is not the right thing to do, and I can see it's I'm not comfortable with this. So it's just having that scrupulousness. I'll just leave it. I'm sure you guys have been in situations. Scrupulous involves everything, but everything depends on food. So what you consume is you are what you eat. The food that you consume is what gives you the energy to worship and to do and to act and do. So if what you're consuming is tainted or it is polluted, then it's going to affect what comes out, the end product, which is the action. And he just gives it's a side note on that those who acquire prohibited and suspect things are seldom granted success in performing good deeds. When they appear to be doing so, these are inevitably tarnished with hidden things which spoil them. So either you're consuming haram, okay? You're consuming things that's going into your system. That's what you're feeding your family, okay? And often you won't even find any desire to do any khair, any good. If you do, then it's tarnished with. It's yes, you're doing the action, but it's tarnished with inner sickness. This is what the effect. So don't think it's not having an effect. Don't think it's all right. I'm good as long as I can earn this haram, but as long as I give a bit of charity and perhaps build a mosque one day, and all will be good. It's consuming you from inside, if not from outside. And Allah, in any case, works are not accepted by Allah unless they're good. In Allah, tayyibun la yaqbalu illa tayyiba. These are core principles. That Allah is good and only accepts that which is good, which is halal, which is pure. Okay. So maybe, you get, as people do, they have a haram income and they do good deeds. But Allah is not interested in that. Allah doesn't accept that. Because it's coming from a source which is bad. So the explanation of this is that acts can only be performed by using the body, and the body can only move by the energy obtained from food. If the food is vile, the energy it produces in the movements which result in will also be vile. So just careful. We have to be really careful about what we consume and leaving things. If it's doubtful, it's dubious, we don't have to become obsessive about this, but still, if we know that income is haram and the person we're doing business with their income is haram, we have to be very careful. Again, each situation will be different. But we also have the duty to learn. Ask. If you don't know, ask. Don't just go into something blindly. It's all good. I'm fine. Or jump into something, then afterwards shop around for the fatwa that tells you what you're doing is right. It's all good. You have to have caution. Stop and ask: is this the right thing to do? Ask people. Ask the experts. Sayyidina Umar said, if someone has no fiqh, then don't let them buy and sell in our market, in our suq, the suq of Medina. Okay, if someone hasn't got this basic understanding of what the Sharia tells, you're not fit to buy and sell in the suq. Okay, and it also includes the laws of the land, not just the fiqh, the Sharia, also the employment law, tax, etc., etc. It's all part of that knowledge. We have to have both. So these are all important things. Any things anyone wants to raise so far? Any thoughts? All good, inshallah. Just try and think about how it applies to your situation. It's an the inward state is tawakkul ala Allah. All that we do. That we take the means, but we understand that everything is in the hands of Allah. Our rizq is in the hands of Allah. So tawakkul means that you know this, you have a certainty and a knowledge that everything is in the hands of Allah. Good or bad, harmful, beneficial, pleasant, unpleasant. And then we have a certainty that Allah has apportioned our rizq for us already. It's already been decreed, even when you're in your mother's womb. Your rizq has already been decreed. That what's coming to you will come to you. We're just told to take the means. Take the means. But don't chase after it. It'll come. Your dunya will come to you. Your rizq will come to you. Whether we're still out of servanthood to Allah. We take the means. We rely upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet gives this beautiful metaphor of the birds. Were you to rely on God as He rightly should be relied on, He'll provide for you as He provides for the birds. The birds don't have a sleepless night worrying about tomorrow. Is there going to be enough insects or worms or seeds or berries? They're not worried about that. They just go to sleep and they wake up in the morning, they fly out, and Allah provides for them. They go out empty, hungry, and they come back with their stomachs full. But we're worried about this and next year and then my pension plan and this and that and what the shares go down and this and that's all. Everything has its place, but the internal state. What's the internal state? Behind or beneath the surface is your calm, because Allah will take care of it. Okay, Allah brought you into this world. Allah and has guaranteed your rizq for you until the day you meet Him. Every breath, and every morsel of food, and every drop of water, everything has already been apportioned to you. Okay. And what's coming to you will come to you, and what's not destined for you will never come to you. Yeah, even if you try put all your efforts into chasing this thing, if that job or that money or that is not destined, you can travel, can go round and round in circles around the world in 80 days, and you'll never reach it. But if it's destined for you, it will come to you, even if you don't want it. But we're still the world is a world of means. Take the means, learn a profession, earn a skill, go out and earn the means. But with that, if you think that your means is coming from that thing, your tawheed is incorrect. Yeah. If you think that if you're the one that's doing it, that's problematic, because Allah is the one that creates it, does everything, subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you think it's your boss, if you think it's your company that's provided, you're giving your rizq, then that's not the reality. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is using that thing and that thing to come to you. And it's difficult. Again, I'm not saying, if I was, if you've been unemployed or you're struggling, it's easy to have this say, just rely on Allah. Someone is stressing out about, but we have to really work on this. Allah will take care of us. And then honesty and integrity. These are just core Islamic values. They're respected in any context, in any society. But this is the essence of Islam. Okay, and anyone know what the first verses to revealed in Medina, or amongst the first verses to revealed in Medina? Does anyone know? What was the first surah? Yeah, it is. It relates to buying and selling. وَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ. Woe to the fraud, the people who deal in fraud. وَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا اكْتَالُوا عَلَى النَّاسِ يَسْتَوْفُونَ. When they're the ones that they make sure everything is. وَإِذَا وَزَنُوهُمْ يُخْسِرُونَ. But when they're the ones that are giving, they decrease. Okay, maybe a few grams, but they're defrauding the scales. Okay. When they're the ones that are buying, make sure it's perfect, exactly on. But when you're the one that's giving, you give less. Okay. Do they not think they're going to stand in front of Allah one day? These people. Yeah. This is because Medina is a time of transaction. Mecca is different, but as we'll mention, the Prophet, one of the first things the Prophet does in Medina is to establish a suq. We think about he established a masjid, but he also established a suq. We're not going to rely on the Jews had all the suqs, they had all the marketplaces at that time, and the Muslims or the pagans people in Medina had to pay taxes and things in order to buy and sell in the suq, which are just to put them at a disadvantage. The Prophet said, no, we now have a suq, and it's going to be governed by the Deen. But Allah reveals this, saying that don't think you can trick people and deceive people. And he said on another occasion, he was walking through the suq, and he finds a man selling some grain, and the Prophet puts his hand in the grain, and underneath, on the top it's nice and dry, underneath it's all soggy, and he said, why didn't you show that? Why are you concealing that by putting this layer of good stuff on top, and underneath it's all? He said, no one's going to buy it. And he said, Man ghashana falaysa minna. The one who tricks us and deceives us is not one of us. That's not from us. It's not part of us. Our Deen to be. If there's in Sharia, if there's a fault in the product, you have to clarify it to the buyer. The famous story of Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam al-A'zam. He bought and sold garments and silk and cloth and stuff like that. And we're told that he had 40 garments. There was one that had a small defect in it. And he went off and he said to his agent, don't sell any of this without clarifying to the person buying that this one garment has a fault in it. And someone came and just bought wholesale. I'll just buy the whole lot, and he forgot to mention it. And again, Imam Mahibur comes back and says, Alhamdulillah, yeah, we sold everything. I got a really good price for it. And he said, did you clarify the fault in that? He said, no, I just, because that guy just bought the whole lot. He said, just take. I don't want any of that money. Take it, give it all in sadaqah. I don't have even like a penny of my money that's been bought out of deception or out of, that's how they were. And that's what made them who they were. That's why people became Muslim, just by seeing the honesty and the integrity they had. How did Islam spread to Indonesia and these places? In the history books, it's traders that went and bought and sold, and people saw the beauty in their transactions. But in reality, there were people of Allah that wanted the people to guide them. They used trade as a side. They weren't really, the trade was just a means, but they were people that went to spread Islam in Bangladesh and in what's now Indonesia, Malaya, those lands. But people saw the beauty of their transaction, the honesty of their transaction. They weren't interested in just making profits. And compare that to the colonial powers that came. The Dutch and the Portuguese and the British just took everything by force. Allah says, the Prophet says, if someone swearing this oath, these false oaths, I don't know if you can see them, but you just have this in souks. People swear, oh, wallahi, this is the best product I've ever got, and it's straight from it's from the best. It's like it's something he's bought it cheap from China or something, but this is like the best, highest quality, whatever German product, and it's just that you're using the name of Allah to sell something, make it like an extra £5 or something. You're swearing by Allah. Allah says that person, Allah won't even speak to them on Yawm al-Qiyamah, because he's using the name of Allah, and that's unfortunately. It's become a habit of people. Wallah this, wallah that. It's in Arab, but even in like street talk now, people saying wallahi this and wallahi that. Just be careful what you're saying. Some cultures just use it all the time. It's very dangerous. But especially if you're doing it to sell something, to make a little bit extra money. Taqillah. Have taqwa of Allah. There's all these important things. And then just honoring. You have a contract. You have an hour. It depends on what your job. You'll know the dynamics of that job. Are you honoring that contract? Because that's part of our Deen. The difference with all these things is that a non-Muslim person will honor it because it's an agreement. But for us, it's an agreement, but it's also a religious obligation. See the difference? That's where the Ihsan comes in. Not just Ihsan, it's just an obligation. You've signed up for something. You honor that. Withaq, it's all these have these really heavy words in Arabic about if you're being paid to come from this time to that time, and you don't do that, then you're not honoring that contract. And it's not between you and your employer, it's between you and Allah. And unless there's an agreement there, maybe they're relaxed on certain things, maybe they're not, but you have to negotiate that. The final thing is on etiquettes and excellence. Okay. And what are some of the ways that we can have excellence in our dealings, in our work? How can we excel? What are some of the ways that show that we're showing excellence, ihsan? Again, these are my ideas. You can disagree with me, but I'll explain them one by one. Having your own spiritual practice, having best practice in work. There's the idea of best practice. What's good in that field? Having ethical concerns. Yeah, talk about that. Showing beautiful character. Another is gender interaction. These are just a few. We'll go through them. So when I say spiritual practice, you can say, what's that got to do with my work? What's that got to do with my work? But the stuff that you do off the pitch affects what you do on the pitch. How's your salah? Okay. That has an effect on your overall character and your overall life. Inna salah tanha, Allah says, Inna salah tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar. Your salah stops you from doing terrible things. So are you performing your salah? Are you performing it well? That affects how you are at work, and that affects how you are with your family. It affects everything. Yeah. Are we actually actively seeking knowledge, seeking to purify ourselves, seeking to get better, seeking to nurture our iman? Or is it just something we're just laid back about? That has an effect on how we work. Obviously, it has an effect on your overall well-being. It has an effect on your how you are with your family. Do we have our own spiritual practice beyond the minimum? Everyone, salah is a minimum, but do we have our own nafil that we pray? Do we have our own dhikr that we do? The adhkar that you do in the morning, the Prophet ﷺ had set us adhkar to do in the morning. That's like our homework. Those adhkar that you do in the morning set you up for the whole day. It's how you leave the house. And the adhkar, just the simple things that we do. That you don't underestimate how powerful those things are. And if you're not familiar with any of them, then it's something we can talk about. But the Prophet ﷺ, there's many adhkar that he taught us to read in the morning, in the evening. That's spiritual health. That's your spiritual multivitamins that you have in the morning. It protects you from all kinds of harm, protects you from all kinds of evil. It keeps you spiritually healthy. Even if it's just 3 quls and ayatul kursi. But many other things the Prophet taught us. When COVID came, we started remembering, the Prophet used to say, "A'udhu bi kalimatillahi tamma." I'll seek refuge in all these things that the Prophet ﷺ teach us. Hasbi Allah la ilaha illa alayhi tawakkaltu rabbul arsh. All these adhkar, they're very rich. Do we have that spiritual practice? Do we do dhikr? Again, it's like training. The guys who go to the gym, if you're in the routine of training, then when it comes to it keeps you fit. It comes to a race or it comes to you're already in shape. But likewise, with your spiritual practice, if you're constantly doing dhikr outside of then you'll take that with you throughout your life. Don't expect it all when Ramadan comes just to switch on them and it's all going to come. If you're actually in a practice throughout the year, reading the Quran, then it'll come in Ramadan. But it also affects how you are in your work. These things we're talking about of taqwa and avoiding haram. If you're in that state of remembrance and consciousness, that'll come naturally. What do we say when someone passes away? Immediately we say, "Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un." We text it to each other on WhatsApp. But what we're actually supposed to do is to say it to yourself. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi. It's a reminder that I'm coming to Allah. I'm going back to Allah. But if you train yourself to say that and it impacts you, then that'll affect how you are. So that's important. And what's our relationship with the Prophet ﷺ? How much do we nurture that relationship with the Prophet ﷺ? This is part of our Ihsan. Everything we're doing, we're trying to emulate him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How can you love someone you don't know? How do you You say, what's this got to do with work? I say, this has got everything to do with work. This is the essence of everything that we do. If you're a believer, who do you follow? Who's the person that you're seeking to emulate? So and then these are the things that you guys know better than I do. What's the best practice? I don't know what field. I know Ihsan's in optometry. He knows what the latest things are, and excelling in that is part of your Deen. It's not just excelling in of your career. It's actually part of your Deen to be the best in your career, but also to balance it. You're not so obsessed with your career that it takes precedence over everything else. You show the excellence in that, knowing what the latest thing is, what the latest innovations are, the latest reading, learning from others' expertise, not just content to just sit there and just sit, with the knowledge that you have, or where's the next level of progress? That's part of what we're talking about. Is part of Ihsan. If Allah loves for you to do something, Allah loves for someone to do something with excellence. So strive excelling in that thing. That's part of our deen. And unfortunately, this is sad to say that in Muslim organizations and charities and mosques, there isn't that. They're very, very far behind in that idea of best practice and how we treat people, and how there's an idea that because in our homelands we get things for cheap, we can do it for cheap. We can cut corners. We can do this. Maybe we don't. It's actually the charity sector is very regulated in the UK, and that's a blessing. That's how it should be, because anyone can just set up a charity and take funds for this and that. But we have this idea that we can sort of cut corners and do it on the cheap, and the best practice should be the best in a Muslim organization. But if you speak to people that work in Muslim organizations, you'll see they actually prefer to work in a non-Muslim organization, because they're treated better. There's more professionalism. There's more best practices. That's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because we're all brothers and we can all overlook things, and it's all good, and you get your reward from Allah, inshallah. That's all true, but we should be better. Our deen is a deen of ihsan. And that leads on to the ethical concerns. How is it that non-Muslims are? There's a 70-year-old woman who's in prison. You heard this story in the news. She's in prison. She was protesting for the environment, and she's so. They wanted to tag her. You might have seen the story in the news. She's an old woman, 74 years old or something, and they let her out of prison, but her wrist was so small they couldn't put a tag on her wrist, so she has to be in prison over Christmas because she protested. She believed so strongly that I'm going to stand on a bridge or something and protest against the destruction of our environment. As a non-Muslim, and you can say what you want about the environmental movement, whatever, but they care so deeply about that movement that she's prepared to make that sacrifice. But for us, the environment is a religious thing as well. It's not just a worldly thing, because we have an obligation to preserve the environment. Again, Muslims often way behind on these things, but we have the environmental movement is a secular movement. They don't see it in sacred terms. As Muslims, we see it in a sacred duty. How we deal with things. So is the way we work ethical in line with our teachings, or are we just in there just like everyone else for the profits, just competing with everyone else to make more money? It doesn't really matter how we treat people, what governments or companies we deal with. The whole boycott. Obviously, the last year, people have become more aware of the companies that support Israel, and it's almost every company. But we should. Why do we have to wait for that to happen? Should we not be more ethical in our choices anyway? Starbucks. I could tell you, Starbucks was unethical before the war. Why do we buy from these companies? Go to the small company. Go to the small. Go to the small businesses and small cafes and small. Let these. That's much more closer to our deen. That you actually know the person you buy from. The environmental damage these huge companies do, the carbon footprint, all these are religious things. They're not just things that the environmentalists talk about. They're something that we have to think about. How are employees treated? If you were to look at the companies that we buy from, if you're getting clothing that's dirt cheap, it probably means someone in Bangladesh has been used as slave labor. That's why it's so cheap. You should think about that. Non-Muslims are buying ethically, and again, not everyone can afford to spend more. But if we have the choice of products that we buy, then make an ethical choice. But see it from a position of ihsan, not just as like everyone else. We're different. It has a religious element to it. And then if you're in that position of being able to create halal alternative or an ethical alternative, you're going to be someone that's leading the way. You could be someone that invents, that comes up with an ethical alternative or halal alternatives or something. Like now, if you're going to look at your bank, well, the bank that you bank, is your bank ethical? Because you can in 10 minutes you can open another bank that's more ethical. It's not difficult to do these things. It's small things that we do on a personal level, in a work situation. Even things like halal tourism. You have a choice. You're going to go on holiday. Think about the place you're going to go on holiday. What intention you're doing that with. You could go to a Muslim country that not many people go to, but you're helping the economy in that place. Beautiful country. Saudi doesn't need Saudi doesn't need any money from us. It's beautiful. Everyone should go for Umrah, Bismillah. But you could go to another country with the intention of helping that country. The Muslim world needs people to, supporting small businesses. We said about that. I said the Prophet ﷺ establishing the market in Medina, saying we're going to be independent. We're going to have our own systems, not just for us. The Prophet ﷺ wasn't just for us, my little group. He was establishing a souk for everyone, Muslim and non-Muslim, that everyone could deal justly. regardless of Muslim or non-Muslim. That's the idea. That's what we should be thinking about. Not just for I'm creating something for my Muslim people. I'm creating something because I have something to offer to the world which is better than what they have. We have teachings that are superior, but do we see it as that, or do we see it as just, you know? And then I know this is going long now. I'm coming to the end, inshallah. It goes through everything, you know. Showing beautiful character. This is the essence of our Deen. And where does it come out? It comes out in our dealings with each other. It comes out in our dealings with our families. It comes out in dealings in business, in trade, in those human contacts. This is when when it comes out, and you could quote hadith after hadith after hadith. The Prophet said, "I was only sent to perfect noble character." Okay, the Prophet. This is beautiful. May Allah have mercy on a man who is generous and easygoing. When he buys, and generous when he seeks. Sorry, this is missing there. Rahimahullah, Imran samihan idha ba'a, samihan idha ishtara, samihan idha iqtada. When you're in your dealings, you're generous and easygoing. You're not demanding the last. I'm gonna fight you for the last penny. No, it's just like you just buy, sell, barakah. Yeah. Allah, the Prophet is making dua for that person. May have mercy of the person who's easygoing. Give and take. That's someone you'd like to do business with if you're in business. But someone who's really insistent on everything being done to the last thing. The believer may reach through his good character the ranks of those who fast in the day and stand in the prayer at night. Again, this idea of it's not just the worship you do. Your good character, beautiful character in your day-to-day reaches your rank that your worship doesn't get you to. Rudeness, obscene speech. What negates noble character? That's nothing to do with Islam. The best person in Islam is the one who's the best character. The most beloved of you to me and the closest to me on the day of judgment are those who have the most beautiful character. That should be enough in and of itself. You want to be close to Rasulullah on the Yawm al-Qiyamah, work on your character. And the character comes out in these dealings. When you're tired and you had a long day and you've had a stress at home and this and that, and you still show that character because it's not because of the person, but because you have a divine teaching from Allah. You have a sunnah from the Prophet. So finally, gender. This is one of many. This is one issue. We could talk about any issue, but this is one that comes up. You're in a workplace with the opposite gender. How do you navigate that? How do you navigate that? Or just work from home? Haram. I think just make sure people are more experienced than myself. The key is to be professional. You're here to do a job. You're here to. Part of that job is to have good character, to be approachable, to be nice, but having boundaries, and being clear about those boundaries. Having modesty, having respect. Avoiding khalwa, is when you're alone with a woman. Prophet ﷺ warned us against that. In a situation where no one else, say no one else can see you. That's a dangerous situation. And also, if you're young, get married and invest in your marriage. That's what's going to protect you. Everyone has those sexual urges, but get married young but also invest in your marriage. So that's everything I wanted to cover.